Hello and welcome to another episode on the Human Part of Humotech podcast series. Today, we're actually going to be interviewing Elaine Kachala. She's an award-winning children's nonfiction author known for her debut book, Superpower, The Wearable-Tech Revolution, which was recognized as a best STEM book by the National Science Teaching Association and was a finalist for several prestigious awards. With over 25 years of experience as a health policy advisor, Elaine has a strong background in psychology, sociology, and environmental studies. She brings a unique perspective to STEM and STEAM topics, aiming to inspire young readers to think critically about new technologies. Look out for her next book, Building Homes for All, publishing in 2026. Welcome, Elaine.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
We're so excited to have you on this podcast. Thank you for joining today.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be here.
So excited to talk with you. So I guess to kind of get started, I want to ask you, so we discovered your book, The Superpower, the Wearable-Tech Revolution book. Can you give us a brief overview of the book and, what age group was it written for?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for your interest in Superpower. It really means a lot to me. It is a middle grade book for ages 9 to 12, grades 4 to 8, and it was published by Orca Book Publishers. And it's actually part of Orca's nonfiction series for middle grade readers called Orca Think. And that series is about introducing kids to issues in headline news and getting them to ask questions and think critically about those issues. And so basically, it's about wearable technology, so electronic devices on, in, and attached to our body. And it's about the exciting ways that wearables are improving people's lives. And readers meet engineers, scientists, designers, and young inventors too, who are featured in the book. And it's all about how they're creating devices to help people survive and thrive and live better lives. But there's another really important part to the book, and that's about the downsides of technology and innovation and how experts try to prevent problems before the technology's out there creating harm, because the same technologies that can help us also come with some ethical issues and some problems and some challenges, because we're not just talking about things like smartwatches, but we're talking about virtual reality devices, brain-computer interfaces that detect and transfer thoughts from our brains to computers, and exoskeletons and prosthetics that are on our bodies to physically boost and assist them. And so the readers meet engineers and scientists, inventors of all kinds, and they're exploring technology's pros and cons, and they're navigating this new tech frontier of wearable technology, and they're facing issues about how to design it responsibly. And then the book raises some bigger picture kinds of questions that it's important for everyone to think about, really. And it's about, things like, is it right to keep enhancing our bodies with technology, or are there enough rules to protect us? Think of things like data privacy and safety. And just because we can, should we invent this technology? So it comes with some good questions. There's many layers for kids to think about and sink their teeth into. And it's popular in schools and libraries because, like most nonfiction books, it comes with a guide, so like free teacher's guide for, that was developed by a STEM consultant, and the guides are aligned with the National Generation Science Standards and Common Core State Standards, and it's loaded with fantastic illustrations by Belle Withrich and engaging photos, so it all helps make the text really accessible for kids.
Yeah, I can tell you, our team is a big fan. We love the book. It's beautiful. The illustrations are lovely. Big fan. So agree. I don't have it in front of me, but if I did, maybe we can insert that.
I have one.
Oh, yeah, it's beautiful. It's so good. Highly recommend reading, viewers watching this episode.
Yeah, the illustrations are fabulous.
They're wonderful. It's beautiful. Yeah. Well, thank you for that. So I guess we're kind of curious to know what inspired you to focus on wearable technology.
Yeah, I guess the idea came from many places, and it developed over a few years. I guess first, so my job, I worked in the health policy field, and I saw the incredible ways that wearables were helping people, and especially people with disabilities.
Mhm.
And then kind of at the same time, I was at a workshop, at a writing workshop, and I was talking to an editor. We were talking about middle grade books and impacts of technology on the world and the kinds of books that might engage young readers. And the more we talked, the more I came intrigued with the idea. It hadn't actually occurred to me before to write this kind of book. But as we talked, I was getting really excited about the idea about writing a STEAM book. So STEAM being short for science, technology, engineering, art, and math. And I feel strongly about that kind of education for kids to give them the best opportunities for the future. I have two daughters who are in the fields, and so I'm kind of like tuned in, I guess you could say, to some of the things going on. And so I started doing some research, and I'm wasted in all this research about all of these different technologies. Many drafts later, trying to focus and figure out, what's the right thing to talk about. And then it hit me about wearables and how they're the next frontier that are really changing our lives. And there was so much happening, is so much happening in this field, positively and negatively. And there was this kind of rich mix of pros and cons and, benefits and ethical issues. And so I thought, well, this is a kind of critical thinking book I would want to write. And so it's not just about the technology, but a lot of ethical and social issues too. And that it was be relevant for kids' lives. And so not only are they, thinking about the technologies that are affecting them in the world, but they can connect them with some of the STEAM topics that they're learning about in school. And as I was realizing, the superpowers that these technologies can give us, I thought, superpowers, that's kind of a cool thing. So yeah, it came together over many years.
Yeah, we definitely, when we came across the book, we got very excited because finding books that are focused on the age group that I think you're kind of targeting and like presenting the technology in a way that I think you just did a really nice job. We are big fans. We're a little biased, I think.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Um,
Good to have fans.
all right. So, in the book, you do introduce kids to exoskeletons and prosthetics. Can you tell us about this section of the book and why it was important to you to include it?
Yeah, for sure. Many reasons, actually. And so, well, the book's about how wearables are changing our lives and are augmenting our abilities and, helping people live fuller, more active, and healthier lives. And certainly, exoskeletons and prosthetics improve people's quality of life immensely. And people with disabilities are often the first, to use wearable technologies. I actually first became aware of how prosthetics were helping kids. It was when I worked in one of the health policy positions, and I became familiar with one of the hospitals here in Toronto, Holland Bloorview Kids Rehabilitation Center, but they do international work on kids rehab and disabilities, and they're leaders, and they were doing a lot of work in this area. And so I started to dig a little further, and then I met an engineer named Mamit Magoo, and he developed an exoskeleton for his young nephew who had cerebral palsy. And exoskeletons are devices that apply robotics, mechanics, and electronics to, boost and give people additional strength and endurance. And Mamit's story was fantastic for including in this book. And so because he was an engineering student, and back at university, he was fascinated with robotics. He was studying mechatronics, which is a combination of mechanical, electrical, and computing. And at the same time, when he was studying, he learned about his nephew's disability. And it really upset him because he was thinking about the life that his young boy was going to have, confined to a wheelchair, not able to participate in sports, and then just the whole idea of being sedentary, and all of the health problems that could accompany that. So he talked to his friend Raul, and he thought, wow, like we do robotics, who better to try to create a device to help him than us, because literally there was nothing. There was no solution for kids with cerebral palsy. So they designed many, many prototypes, and eventually landed on the Trexo, which is a robotic gait training device, which means the robotics legs move the child's legs in a regular stepping pattern, just like normal walking. And then there's this support. I can actually show you a picture. There's a support for kids to rest on with their upper bodies. And so he devised this Trexo, and it was really successful. His nephew, for the first time, it was a really emotional experience for him and his family, and his nephew could walk. And so he became passionate about this and started a company, and now Trexo is helping kids worldwide to take their first steps. And I interviewed Namit. He's outside of Toronto in this area, and I met a boy on the Trexo and his father, and he just couldn't say enough about how this device had actually changed his boy's life. And so to go farther, so I did a presentation to a group of kids in First Robotics Lego League, and that's an international nonprofit robotics program for middle grade kids, this Lego League version of it. And Amit did a video or did a presentation with me through video, and he was talking to them about the possibilities, real world applications of robotics, and how he had this passion to help his nephew. And he explained, how the testing never ends and they're always improving and innovating the device. And in fact, actually, the Holmeswood Research Center in Toronto now actually has a Trexo, and they're helping kids with disabilities, and they're doing research on how it's improving the kids' lives and even how it's changing their brain as they learn to use these muscles. Anyway, the kids were in awe, and it was really important for them to see how robotics was being used to solve real problems. And that was one thing I really wanted to show in the book, was the application of STEM to show real world problems. And then there's another part that really connected with the book, and that is Mamit talked a lot about safety and design from an engineering standpoint, and how no design is complete without the user's feedback, and about the important things engineers and designers need to think about when they're creating technology. And that discussion is another important part of the book that I was able to talk about around this theme of exoskeletons and prosthetics. And it's about the safety and reliability of devices and how, inventors design technology. So these devices, these wearable devices, allowed me to, expand on the discussion. And there are two other important issues, and one is around tech inequity, haves and have-nots. The Trexo costs thousands of dollars. I know there's lots of fundraising, and I know he works with insurance providers to try to get coverage. And so there was that aspect of the issue of wearable technology that I could talk about in the book. And another interesting avenue for discussion was how people see disability differently. Not everyone wants to be fixed with technology. Not even all kids want a Trexo. Some people are just comfortable with their wheelchairs, and a designer needs to respect that. But the thing is, I was able to talk about different points of view. So, for example, there's another engineer in the book by the name of Hugh Herr, and he was a rock climber. And as a young kid, he had a tragic accident, lost both his limbs, but he grew up to become an engineer and design prosthetics for himself and for others. And he imagines a future where technology eliminates all disability. But there's another story in the book about a biochemist named Gregor Wolbring, and he was born without legs. He doesn't view himself as disabled, and he thinks that if we're always striving for perfection, it could lead to, a rat race of abilities. And is that the right thing? And then there's another little story in the book about a woman named Patty Byrne, and she's an advocate for disability justice. And she talked about how people see disability as a personal tragedy. And she says it's not. We just want, me and many people like me just want a working wheelchair and to not be poor and have a job. So people see disability differently. So it was important to have that discussion in the book as well. Many people want prosthetics and exoskeletons to make their body whole. Many people don't. And then there's even another aspect of the discussion. people may want a prosthetic, but they don't want something that looks like a medical device. And so there's a little story in the book about a designer named Sophia de Oliveri Barata, and she is a designer that creates personalized looking limbs for people. And so they're like a reflection or an extension of their personality.
So cool.
So it's fascinating to give kids all these different perspectives to talk about and to think about. And to build on Gregor's point, are we entering a rat race of abilities? What if people amputate their limbs and get prosthetics if they don't have a disability, but they just want to be stronger, faster, better? Is that right? So there's lots of things to talk about and critical thinking kinds of issues. So throughout the book, I have these caution, move slow, and think human sidebars that present these sort of opposing points of view, like, wow, the technology can do all this to help us, but these are some other things, that we need to think about. And there's even a little caution sidebar on transhumanism. Are we crossing a line? Are we still human if all our body parts are tech devices? Again, people have different perspectives. What do kids think? So exoskeletons, it's a long-winded way of saying exoskeletons and prosthetics in and of themselves improve people's lives tremendously, and they're fantastic devices, but they open up the opportunity for a discussion to have all kinds of issues come up and let kids view their perspectives on very different topics.
Honestly, your book, the book that you worked on, I really appreciate that you're offering the different perspectives, and I think that you're encouraging younger folks to have these conversations early, because we're in this world now where we're moving really rapidly, and these questions, ethically or otherwise, it's just going to be a part of our reality. So figuring out how we feel now is really important, and how that's going to impact where we go. I think adults should read this book. I think this is a book for everybody. And it does. I know we've had discussions here about some of the topics that were raised and like different perspectives. And I think we need more of that in our world.
So that's good. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, kids' nonfiction books, they're, well beyond other books, not just Superpower. They really dig deep into all these critical issues. They're just so thoughtful. Yeah. So it's really nice to have those books out there.
Yeah. Okay. So, are introductory materials like Superpower important for encouraging young people's interest in STEM and robotics? Do you think that they're important for that?
I do. I really do. I think, beyond school programs and after school programs, I think, STEM books are a really essential way to engage young readers, to get them excited about possibilities for themselves, to help see themselves as future inventors, which is why it's really important to have books showing engineers, scientists, designers, and inventors from different genders, race, color, and so forth. And I mean, increasingly, we're seeing outstanding picture book STEM books that are beautifully written and illustrated and engaging and inspirational. And not only do they show how inventors overcome their personal struggles or try to, what they go through to pursue their passion and interests, but they feature little known inventors who have been major contributors to STEM history. And whose accomplishments have been groundbreaking, many of whom are women, many of whom are African American. So it's really important for kids to see all kinds of inventors, and you can do that with books. I mean, kids can only participate in so many programs, but the number of books you can read opens up the window to many more opportunities. Also, I mean, the evidence shows that it's important to get kids thinking about STEM early as elementary, to inspire their imagination before they start getting sort of preconceived notions about STEM is too hard for me and that kind of thing. And so books can help a lot with that. For example, I have a quote from a Teach magazine. It's an organization funded by the Canadian government, and they provide resources to K-12, kindergarten to grade 12 teachers. And the quote says, using books to teach students about inventors allows the opportunity to instill a deeper message, one that encourages kids to embrace their curiosity and pursue their own creative ideas. These books share inspiring stories about inventors who are unafraid to dream big and think outside the box, and they're great for STEM and STEAM learning. And these kinds of themes are reflected in statements by the National Science Teaching Association and the Children's Book Council and the American Association for the Advancement of Science. They're all looking for STEM books on a variety of topics to engage kids in STEM subjects, and also to have these other, conversations that bridge over into social issues and ethical issues. And increasingly, a lot of organizations that provide STEM and STEM resources for K-12 educators are including books more now, and including authors too in their conference events and panels to show teachers what resources are available to them. And I would say that beyond actually just engaging kids in STEM, there's another benefit too, and that is kids live in a pretty challenging space these days, a pretty challenging world dealing with everything from COVID to climate change. And STEM books are inspiring because they're hopeful, because people are out there solving problems. They are developing solutions to pressing problems. So that's pretty inspiring and hopeful for kids to see. The National Inventors Hall of Fame says some kids are naturally drawn to STEM subjects, but others, don't identify as math or science. Fair enough. But the more a child explores STEM, so through books, through programs, through all different avenues, the more they see these subjects as leading to building, designing, creating, or solving problems, and they see STEM subjects as more than just sort of memorizing math facts or memorizing science facts. It's like real life people out there, in exciting fields, making life easier, healthier, more fun for people. And so that's pretty inspiring, like to get beyond the fact, memorization and repetition concept that goes along with STEM. These STEM books that are, inspiring can do that. So I think that they play an important role for sure.
Thank you. Yeah, your point about them being inspiring and encouraging and hopeful is 110% agree that having that, especially now with some of the things that are going on, is really, really important. Can be a part of
so much for kids to face.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So beyond books, are you aware of other strategies or avenues that successfully engage kids in STEM?
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of research by organizations such as STEM Next or InventEd that STEM education is especially effective when kids experience what it's like to be an inventor. So when they're really working hands-on with projects. So the best STEM projects, whether it's inside or outside of school, do their best job when they encourage kids to actively invent, and they're engaged in activities that bring together their STEM knowledge, their own experience, knowledge from other subjects. And the learning is really powerful when kids see themselves as inventors and capable of creating something cool and useful. And they develop a real connection with the subjects, especially when they're working on problems that they care about. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of evidence too that after school STEM programs really improve academic performance a lot. They fill a gap. Most kids spend more than 80% of their time outside of school. And so having the opportunity to participate in STEM programs can improve their performance at school. There's also good research that it improves equity issues. So, for example, kids of parents who are less educated or kids who live in high poverty areas tend not to pursue STEM careers and don't have the same workforce opportunities. And often their schools in those areas, unfortunately, don't have the same STEM resources. But volunteer programs like FIRST and other related programs that are after school curriculum can step in and fill some important gaps for sure. Role models and mentors. Actually, I recently saw an article by Dean Kamen. He's actually, yeah, yeah, you know him. He's the creator, one of the co-founders of the first robotics program. And I just saw an article the other day, and he's teaming up with STEM superstars like for NASA engineers and so forth, and people, famous STEM people, because he wants to build a STEM culture of superstars, like talking to companies, big companies who invest heavily in, sponsoring Super Bowl or whatever, and they're they're pushing the sports role models. He wants to create a whole culture where you have superheroes, STEM superheroes, and I think that's fascinating. That's interesting too. There's many avenues for engaging kids in STEM, and even if kids don't want to focus on that in their careers, but they've had the benefit of STEM education. That education goes beyond just preparing them for, STEM careers, because the whole process of inventing establishes all kinds of skills: collaboration, leadership, problem solving, risk for tolerance and failure, and ambiguity and learning. So they come up with all of these really tangible skills and resilience that they get through a STEM education. And it motivates them to be change makers. And it also fosters empathy for others, might be the kids they're working with or the kids that they're developing the invention for. So there's all these sort of spin-off benefits that come with a STEM education, even if the child is not going into a STEM career. And if you've ever talked to kids who are in the middle of inventing, it's so exciting to hear them. When I interviewed the young inventors for this book, and they're featured in the book, it's pretty thrilling to hear them talk about their creations. The kids in the book, they're part of a first Lego League robotics program, and they were inventing they're doing a virtual reality and robotics project and called Home Away from Home. And the theme every year first has a theme, and the theme that year was mental health. And so they had the idea of helping astronauts in outer space with their mental health, because space missions are really long and lonely, and they're away from their families for so long that it's a real issue that they have feelings of depression and loneliness. And so they thought if they could design a robot with this 360-degree camera to record family videos, so maybe their children's birthday parties or something like that, and send the footage to the astronauts in outer space, the astronauts could watch that in VR. And because VR experiences are so real, they would feel like connected to their families and like they're not missing out and that kind of thing. And so they were just passionate about talking about this project. Not only was that a cool thing for space, but they saw applications well beyond space, because families can be separated for many reasons. A parent in the military, somebody in the hospital, a divorce situation, living in separate homes. And so they were just beyond excited. I mean, young people have a real passion for creating technology to make the world a better place. And beyond all that, a couple of things really jumped out at me when I was talking to the young inventors, and that was their insights into not just the benefits of the tech, but also the downsides, because they're creators of tech, so they understand how it works. They're not just users and consumers of the technology. And so they really have a deeper appreciation for the risks. And they were telling me that too. And actually, some are even quoted in the book, and how we need better rules and checks and balances in society to protect us from some of the technologies out there. So it's pretty exciting when you talk to kids who are inventing. And I guess the other thing is, and this goes to the point of not all kids just wanting to be a STEM geek, so to speak, but there was this, when I was interviewing them, there was this sort of little banter between a couple of the kids, and one of them said, tech just isn't about becoming a math genius. I love art, and I'm the one who came up with the idea for this project in the first place. So it was like really, it really speaks volumes to the breadth of skills and perspectives that are required in developing technology. But and in this case, especially FIRST, it does a fabulous job of making all kids feel valued and respected, even if their primary focus isn't STEM. Many kids with different skills have a place on the team, and that's really a great way to engage kids. But it takes us into the other topic in the book, which is you really need diverse perspectives for designing responsible technology. It's part of a responsible tech design approach. And we get better, safer products when we have that different perspectives and skills at the table. And of course, this issue has deep roots because it goes back to a couple of things, we just talked about, which is about inequity and kind of a long history of racism, sexism, and discrimination in the tech industry, which is changing, but slowly. And then, kids, inequitable access to STEAM education for kids generally. And so not only is it unfair and unjust to individuals, but we're all losers when we're not getting the best, the best, safer, best and safest products. So that's kind of a long-winded way of saying there are proven strategies for engaging kids in STEM. I'll also say that community STEM events are another opportunity. Where I live here in Ontario, Queen's University and the University of Toronto do these one-day community festivals, engaging kids and families in free events where the university puts on all of these presentations and demonstrations, and the kids get involved in all these messy hands-on activities. And it's exciting for the kids, it's exciting for their families, it's free, and it exposes the possibilities of STEM to the general public. And I know, these events are everywhere, like the Mars Festival, right? That you're part of. Yeah.
So fun. Highly recommend viewers. If you haven't been to the Mars Festival, go.
It's
we
fabulous.
Also have Discovery Day in Pittsburgh. It's a really fun event put on by the Pittsburgh Robotics Network. That's coming up. Got that, and they have a lot of students that will come and check out all the tech. We've got Pure Bots IQ. They do really great work in this space with STEM and STEAM. So important.
So important. Yeah, it's really good. And I mean, the universities are all over this because they realize too that you need to engage kids from, the elementary level, right?
Yep. So how do STEM books encourage literacy and interdisciplinary learning across various subjects and fields?
Yeah, for sure. It's a big topic. As I was mentioning, like Superpower, crosses over into all of the social studies and ethical things. And so it raises lots of opportunities for discussion. In fact, the National Science Teaching Association, the organization that awards its honor of best STEM books, says the best STEM books are those that emphasize real world issues that cross disciplinary boundaries. So there's that. But the question is a really important question because it gets into kind of a touchy issue in education. I'll venture into it. So increasingly, educators are learning about the importance of nonfiction books like Superpower. And last year, the National Council of Teachers of English, the NCTE, released a position statement on the role of nonfiction in K-12, saying that this is a really rich and compelling genre that supports students' development as critically, visually, and informationally literate 21st century thinkers and creators. It's a really important statement. And I thought, yeah. But what surprised me was that this just came out last year. And so I've learned, actually, as a new nonfiction author, that actually it's been a real uphill battle getting nonfiction books into schools and libraries. Well, not libraries so much, but schools. They're just not well known by teachers. Teachers don't know about nonfiction books and even less about STEM books. And that's what the NCTE is saying as part of their position statement. And I've learned that as an author and from other authors. And They've been underutilized in curriculum. Fiction continues to have a dominant role. Not that there's anything wrong with fiction, but that there has to be a better balance here. Anyway, they're proposing as part of their policy statement a change because unlike textbooks and online materials that are created specifically for curriculum, nonfiction books are really well researched, but they offer multiple perspectives on a topic and delve into current and historic events and show scientific discoveries and things that aren't captured in textbook materials. They're just written differently, and they capture material for, specifically aligned for the curriculum. So, and that these books tackle tough topics for kids, as we were saying before. And you look at books like Orca's Think series, which is all about, capturing contemporary issues and stuff like that. Plus, these are spectacularly illustrated and engaged and designed books that are really engaging for kids. And teachers know very little about them. And so there's a movement by a lot of nonfiction authors now to really, for many years now, to try to get nonfiction books in front of teachers by providing them with award lists that include nonfiction books, by participating in some of the conferences that they go to, and through obviously organizations like NCTE. I don't know the history behind why that's the case. NCTE says maybe we have this situation because states no longer require teachers to have courses in children and adult literature as part of their teacher prep program. So maybe that got dropped off the list somewhere down the line. But the important thing is actually research shows that kids love nonfiction. Many thrive on it. For many, it's their gateway to literacy. But the perception among teachers and often many adults is that kids prefer fiction. It's actually not true.
Yeah.
There are many kids who get into reading. I think I was probably one of those kids, actually, who preferred reading nonfiction. So, it's a bit of a touchy subject, but there is a lot of opportunity for nonfiction books and STEM books specifically. And another area where they're really relevant is the whole project-based learning area, which is like an evidence-based teaching method based on how people work in the real world. So they're engaging and make learning come alive using many subjects and resource materials. For example, project-based learning works. They have this tiny home project on their website. And for project-based learning, kids have to answer this driving question. And in this case, the question was, how are we going to build a home, design a tiny home for a family, and within a certain budget? So the kids use Minecraft to design and build their virtual house. They talk to a family. So the teacher brings in, clients, volunteers, and the kids, little young elementary and middle school kids, have to interview them and, what do you need and who's in your family and all this, and find out more about the house. And the teacher invites experts to the classroom. So maybe they're talking about architecture or engineering or design and that kind of thing. And then the kids have to present their newly designed homes to the families and, get feedback. And maybe they have to go back and make changes. But all along, they're reading. They're reading STEM books. They're reading about tiny houses. They're reading about construction. They're reading about sustainability and, the importance of housing for health and well-being. So project-based learning is a full STEM, social studies, language arts kinds of activity that engages kids, all the way around, of which STEM books are, important. And
it sounds like the Minecraft. We have a niece who just loves Minecraft, and I could see her just
a thing.
Project. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like I would love this project.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
What was it like writing Superpower? Can you tell us about that process? What was the hardest, most challenging part of writing or researching this book? Kind of sharing a little bit about that process.
Yeah. It was a long journey. It was over about 5 years that I had started on it. It was my first book. So I'm going to say thrilling, nerve-wracking, many challenges, but heartwarming experience overall, because working with other authors is just incredible. I've never met such a collaborative group. and so much support. And also all of the inventors, the scientists that I interviewed, really supportive, and then support for my family. And working with Orca is fantastic. Working with my editor, Kirsty Hudson, and the whole Orca team was really a positive experience. Kids nonfiction books are, incredibly well researched and fact checked. So much focus on making sure, the points are accurate. And so it was about learning from primary sources, books, scholarly articles, journals, and reputable websites, from the companies creating the technology. Watching presentations by experts like in TEDx, or listening to podcasts by experts. Those avenues were really important for helping me understand sort of the very technical aspects, and you'd sort of hear or see things written in industry magazines and that sort of thing in more plain language. So that helped me understand the technology. Interviewing the experts. And I look at other middle grade books too, just for sort of representation, like how they're representing complicated information. But I'd say the book's structure flowed pretty naturally, because it kind of flowed how I was learning about the topic. So, what is wearable technology? And then how's it changing how we live, learn, work, and play? And then as you go deeper into it, experts are learning about the pros and cons, and, the technology's happening really fast, and they're questioning the move fast and break things movement. So all these thoughts that I'm having are just sort of following what I'm learning. And, while the benefits are huge, it crosses over to some pretty crazy ethical territory. So I'm asking questions like, wow, how do we innovate safely in this way? So I'm thinking, well, the reader wants to know these answers too. So the book sort of followed my learning path. And then lots of edits and fact checking with experts, just to make sure I've got it right. And lots of editing and revision. I guess the hardest thing, the whole thing was a steep learning curve, because I was learning about the publishing industry and working with an editor and learning about the technology. So there were lots of things going on. Probably my biggest challenge was version control, because as I went through different drafts, the book essentially changed, but I wanted to keep track of older ideas. So it's still a challenge, but getting better. Yeah, and then controlling the word count, because there's a fixed word limit that Orca says, and that's it. So it's hard to write short with complicated topics.
Yeah, you synthesize so well. Like
Yeah.
what you managed to evoke in the amount of words, it's impressive. So
There's a lot of editing.
yeah, out to your editor.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Are there any upcoming STEM books or projects that you're working on that you can share with us?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for asking. You mentioned it at the beginning. I have another book coming out in the winter of 2026, also with Orca, also part of the Orca Think series. The title might change. It was Building Homes for All. Now the working title is Everyone Deserves a Home: How Technology and Teams Are Building a Fairer, Greener Future. I'm trying to capture a whole bunch of themes that are happening in the book. Basically, the world's facing a housing and a climate crisis. People everywhere are struggling to find and pay for affordable housing, but buildings and construction unleash tons of greenhouse gases. So we have this double whammy of a problem where we need more affordable houses built faster without polluting the earth. So in this book, young readers, they learn about why homes are essential for health and well-being, a little bit about what's behind the affordable housing crisis, but the focus is on how innovative technologies can offer new hope and solutions for building better, faster, safer, greener. So things like 3D printing, 3D construction printing, mass timber technology, robotics, wearable technology for like exoskeletons for construction workers. And then along with the technologies, though, there's some exciting stories about how it takes teamwork to shatter old rules, ideas, and ways of doing things. Because the whole automation movement in construction is slow to happen. And so it's all of the, teams that have come together to sort of, and the examples, some great stories, 3D printed school in the Ukraine, 3D printed schools and homes in Africa, affordable housing, and right here across North America and Europe, phenomenal 3D printed housing projects. I just, yeah, pretty surprising. And talk about fast pace. And it's just like what I started writing a year ago is completely different now, just because of how quickly the technologies are developing. It's pretty insane.
Well, I hope we're signed up for a first edition copy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Autograph when
For
it's
sure.
out.
Yeah.
Excited to read that.
Yeah.
I think to kind of wrap up the podcast here, I'm hoping to ask you for final words of wisdom for our viewers. So maybe there's two different types of viewers here. Maybe there are K through 12, and then maybe there's the adults watching. What is some kind of final words of wisdom, advice, encouragement that you maybe want to offer to the people listening or watching?
I would say for kids and for adults, there are so many fabulous nonfiction and STEM resources to check out at your local library. Just, get a hold of a librarian and ask for books on so many different topics, because there's tons. And check out some of the STEM programs in your community. And it will go a long way to, providing many opportunities for your kids, and just plus it's a lot of fun. They're just, these programs are just run so well. It's a lot of fun. So I would say programs and books.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Elaine. Thank you for everything you're doing. It's important work, and we're happy to have you on the podcast today. So
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.